Someone asked me what I think about the psychology of people who follow e-girls, and I don't know anything about them really. I drank one of their bath water once. At least I thought I did. It ended up being a fat Scottish man's water instead. I would have preferred the herpes batch, to be honest. But that's life, isn't it? When life throws lemons, or in this case, when life throws male sweaty ass at you, drink it. Self-help channel. I want you to think about it for yourself, because I think it's pretty self-explanatory. Somebody who's obsessed with e-girls, or gives them money at least. And how small the amount of money is, there's something in there that says that the psychology of that person is lazy. Now, the default psychology of every human being on the planet is greedy, lazy, self-interested. Just is. It's because human beings, and every evolution thing... Is that the right word? Did I get the good mark? Look at this little turkey neck coming in. Yeah, so that's the default setting. Greasy, lazy, self-interested. It's because when any organism evolves, they always want to be able to do the bare minimum, because a lot of what... they talk about it in Hunger Games. How you always think that the way to evolve is to have the sharpest claws. Well, if that was the case, why are the dances on cats the peak of human evolution, huh? I guess there'd be a lot of people out there going, but they are 21 seasons and still going. What a shit musical. My name's Chester the cat, and my name's Cindy the cat. Anyway, that's the end. It's just them introducing themselves for 2 hours. What's the deal? So, look. People getting into that mind frame. Well, actually, sorry, they're just born into that mind frame, because it's just as easy as possible a lifestyle, because look, okay, that's right, I was talking about Hunger Games. In Hunger Games, they point out that it's usually the people that die first that are the ones that run straight to getting the weapons. Because if you're in combat, that sucks. A really good survival strategy is to stay away from combat as much as possible. It's the same thing as a snake. Snakes do absolutely nothing. If you ever become an owner of a snake, you will realize that they're extremely happy just being coiled around under a rock all day. And then the only time they ever start moving around their cage and you think, oh, they wish to be on the outside world. No, they don't. I actually know this as a result of listening to people with degrees in zoology. They like being in captivity because it just means that they have to do as little as possible. The only reason they start moving around is they're like, I'm hungry. And then you give them a mouse and they just go, and go back to sleep again. That's a really good strategy for survival. Doing the least that you can possibly do. Doing as little as possible to get by so you can just go, there's a hole. Ah! Alright, I can die now. All that your psychology wants you to naturally do is the bare minimum, because it is one of the best ways that you could possibly survive, is if you don't keep your head above. If you're one of those alpha boss males, as soon as, just the very fact that you want to be at the top means that there's going to be competitors. It's really easy being one of the bitter cucklords in a... Look, I like the terminology, it's very descriptive, I just don't like the people who use it. Like myself. That's what this channel's all about. Reconciling my hatred of myself. Can you imagine if that was the case? Fuck. What a sick channel this would be. I'm just kidding, I love myself too much. And it's closer to the truth. So you're trying to conserve as little energy as possible. That is what is happening when people get e-girls. They are the snakes of humanity. I feel like getting my pee-pee erect and I can't even be bothered to look at pornography. There's too much action in that. And they don't look exactly like the anime I thought, which even shows even more laziness because they're not even thinking about a real girl. They've just gone straight from, yay, Pokemon, ooh, Misty's kind of hot, I'll just keep that going, that one looks kind of like, Nurse Jenny, yay, my pee-pee. So it's someone else's imagination of what somebody should look like to be hot. And then they've just encapsulated that. They've realized that that's smart. It's very smart what e-girls do, I guess. It's very weird softcore pornography, but whatever floats your boat. And so that they go into that. And the ones that can replicate those anime characters as well as possible, they're the ones that become the most successful. And that is because there is such a little amount of thought involved in that. It's actually what Mark Twain said, that the hardest thing a man could possibly do is to think. And it's true, because to think means that you have to come up with original new conclusions, new distinctions of how the world works. If you're just looking at a chick going, that's something that you saw when you were 10, and you're so lazy. Think about how many layers removed you are from actually getting a girlfriend at that point. You're so lazy that you refuse to even look at real chicks. No offense to all the hentai nerds out there. And I get it, they are hard. But, look, I suppose there's no way to put around this. I do mean that offense. Sorry. And so, watch the subtramp go, because this is YouTube. Yeah, so those people now having to move away from that. First of all, they have to be able to look at females as they actually exist to get even close to an actual girlfriend. First off, they're not doing that. They would prefer to retreat into the fantasy of it, which is my huge gripe with people that read a lot of fantasy. Yes, I understand that you're able to empathize with people as a result of reading fantasy a lot better, but it's because it's someone else putting their imagination in front of you and saying, here, you don't have to do shit. The dream is done for you. You don't have to work your brain at all. You go, yeah. I suppose there's a little bit of it because you have to imagine what they look like, and then you just go watch a movie and go, that's not Hagrid. Unsubbed to this movie, which means can I get the refund? God, I've spent way too much time on YouTube, haven't I? So, if you're in that scenario and you have those situations where the imagining is done for you, that's the first case. So and this is the thing that it does, the corrosive effect of that. Obviously reading some fiction, good fiction, a lot of Russian fiction actually, that's very insightful. It shows you things about the human condition that you can kind of extrapolate and put into your own life. Obviously, there's exceptions to this, clearly. But in general, what it does is it makes your imagination less keen, less sharp. Obviously, the thing that you should be doing the most to do it is to do imagination-provoking exercises. But that thing kind of just shuts that off. So, people that are looking at these characters aren't even looking at human beings. The next stage after that, if they get out of that phase and they actually look at women for what they are, they have to actually figure out how to be attractive to women, which means that they have to work on themselves a lot. Because it's just, I hate how everyone always goes, oh, you bring up the 80-20 rule. The 80-20 rule is pretty down pat in everything. And it even equates to men and women. 80% of men want 20% of women, 80% of women want 20% of men. And if you want to be in that 20%, you have to work on yourself a lot. How much easier is it just looking at someone on a screen that you don't even have to think at all? It's just something that you liked when you were 10. Yay! There's a little more cleavage than there was in the show aimed at kids, which makes a pretty creepy indictment on Japanese culture. But they, as a result of that, are not. They're so removed away from the actual dimensions of what it would take to be an attractive person. And so, in lieu of all of that, they would rather throw money at it. And this is the weird thing about it, because some of them throw thousands of dollars a month at e-girls that just sit there and go, thanks. They don't even know what you look like. But the thing is that it's easier. And throwing money, just clicking a button, is easier than working on yourself, which is free and has long-term benefits. But that's the problem, long-term. And because their imagination has been shot to the degree that they can't even look at an actual woman and go, oh, I can't even picture myself with that. I can picture myself being with an anime person though, because some of those anime characters are pretty nerdy. They can't even get to that level. So, if you're not working, so it's again just this thing of effort. And the whole point that I want to bring out on this, I guess, what I'm trying to get at here is that mental effort is the hardest effort. Now, people that obviously work as tradies will just go, yeah, you haven't done a hard day's work in your life. No, I did one, and then I just realised, not for me. I just like being paid for being pretty. But, if you're just being paid for being pretty, the same thing happens. And I see it happen with female models all the time. They're getting constantly rewarded for being hot. What happens when they're no longer hot? Well, potentially they could marry some rich Singaporean dude and then divorce him for half of his money. There's that option. So there's some outs on that. But in general, what happens is that they just become nothings. Just start working in cafes after that. And they've got nothing to ground them in because they were just getting by on their looks the whole time. I saw other female models that was studying while they were making a lot of money. That's fine because they had that little advantage in life. They took it. And then on top of that, they were studying in the meantime. They're now very intelligent, articulate people that have jobs that pay better than what they had, or they started up their own businesses or whatever. But they were doing things in that meantime. This is the whole thing. You are rapturing yourself in fantasy. This is why I don't like the idea of it. And everybody always goes, oh, admit it, you like Warhammer. I kind of like the concept of it. I like seeing somebody painting it. It's cool and I understand the artistic value of that. But I don't like how it kind of enraptures people, and you see it on YouTube of people just getting into that mindset of the, oh my God, this is a fact about the Tau Empire. But they're moving themselves into a reality that doesn't exist because they don't want to face their reality. That's why I really like non-fiction. I see the value in non-fiction. Because if I didn't see the value in non-fiction, I wouldn't have a good career. I can guarantee you that. I wouldn't have made the facts and distinctions and built off the facts and distinctions of other people that I had observed in non-fiction and then looked in the world and said, yeah, that applies. But on top of that, this is an even more specific example in my life. And I think that's the thing, is if you just move away from moving all of that information, moving all of your attention away from a fantasy, and that's the whole point about a fantasy. It's luring, it's perfect. It's a really enrapturing story where the hero always wins and the villain, ooh, I'll get you next time. There's all that. It's all designed to capture human beings. But it's very sad when it comes to e-girls because it's the most basic thing there is, which is you have to reproduce. If you haven't done that, you fail as a human being. There's people that go, oh, I'm perfectly happy doing that. And you know what, actually in this day and age where there's too many people, you're probably right. But on a biological level, if you haven't at least developed the opportunity to reproduce, you suck. Straight up, dog. You gotta do something about that. So, that's my idea of when I look at these things. It moves out further than that. Anything where you kind of just get sucked into a fantasy world. And I understand that there is differences in this. So it's all of these nerdy little enclaves. I like them, and that's why I don't want to get into them, because I understand that I've got that same nerdy mindset where I could just go into it and just be like, yes, I'm a D&D Dungeons & Dragons level 4 player, or whatever the fuck it is. I don't know anything about it. But... And there is some imaginative invoking in at least playing those board games, that you are using your imagination, and I guess that you get to socially interact, but the thing is, if you get obsessed with these worlds, they start impacting you as a person. They start leeching away from you. You have to be able to face the world for what it is. It's such a mother... This is the exact speech that a mother bird would give if she could, where she just goes, fly or die! But you have to be in those situations. You have to be able to face those situations, and you have to be excited by them. You have to be excited by the factor of rejection. There is a direct response to how much someone is an alpha boss and how unscared they are from being rejected. So I don't think I'm particularly naturally prone towards being not scared of rejection. I'm very scared of rejection naturally. I've acclimatized myself as a result of reading a lot of self-help to be more on that end of the spectrum. But there's people that you meet all the time where you go, God damn, that motherfucker, he got nothing but balls, man. Those guys are what you should always just be looking towards, but those are usually the ones that just have no filter whatsoever, and they go, you know what I really like? Free climbing up Mount Everest, and oh fuck yeah, it was worth it. That's what we're really focusing in on here today, is the fact that if you are enraptured in one of these fantasy worlds, you have to become your own hero and take the voyage out of it. You understand that lingo better than I do, right? Did I kind of get it right? But you should be focusing on, so for instance, if you are enraptured with e-girls, pick up books. Okay? And then when you're reading those pickup books, you have to just go out and apply those things. Or anything that you're enrapturing yourself in the imagination of something. The reason that you are doing that is because there is something in it that you want, and it is just easier. Because again, the human brain wants ease. It is easier for you to just imagine that you're there, and on top of that, for the imagination to be better than what you could imagine anyway in the first place. So many levels of ease in that. So just understand that if something is capturing you, whatever. So for instance, you know what I think is a result of being in the Warhammer world for a little bit as a result of doing these vlogs? And I think it's the same thing that I understood when I was a 10-year-old. The reason that I liked Warhammer as a 10-year-old, and the reason I really didn't want to get back into it, despite the huge amount of pressure of my editor and my producer going, do it gets views, and it does. Like, oh God. And it's just, okay, look, if you're listening to lectures and stuff while painting, I guess that's a good use of time. And make sure that you're listening to factual things while you're doing that. But I think that the reason that you go into that world as a guy, and why it's so attractive to guys, is because what are you? A commander of an army. And on top of that, the army's very futuristic and you've got cool guns like lasers. But the main thing that is attracting men about is that idea that they should be a leader. There is an inherent want or desire in men to be leaders in a certain field, and it's very hard to become a leader in a field because by definition it means that you have to be, you know, at the vanguard of that, and you have to have qualities that people want to follow. So if you don't have any of that stuff, how much easier is it to sit there and go, yes, look at these space marines ready to die for their emperor. And it's the same thing with video games. All of these things are fantasies. They don't actually help. And I understand it because when I go back and when I go into these fantasy worlds, you feel a lot better instantly because you've just cut yourself out of your own life. And there is some research to say that it's relaxing, but you know what else is relaxing? Meditating. And it's got so many other benefits to it, such as the fact that one 10-minute session of meditation, if you do it right, is the equivalent of 4 hours of sleep. There's all these other points when it comes to meditation as well, in that I can't remember what the word is, syndicates, functions, I don't know, makes things gel good in your brain. In terms of the chemicals in your brain, it kind of resets all of those. And on top of that, it gets rid of all your stress and anxiety. So you can also do that. Look, all of these fantasy things, people to always, when I say this, they always go back and say that that's what fantasy does for them, but it also leeches in that way. It also numbs out that desire that you have for something else. And it's the same thing with pornography as well. All of these things is just a distraction. And if you don't have that distraction, then the desire to want to actually get that intensifies. So that's why I think that non-fiction is always a better alternative. And it's very easy to start with non-fiction. It's the same rule that applies with anything ever. It's that the journey of 1,000 steps starts with one step. It's the same thing. It's just read one word. And as soon as you read one word, your brain goes, oh, I may as well read the sentence while I'm here. And then it goes into the paragraph. And the reason that you realize that non-fiction is a lot better for you than fiction, fiction normally is a page turner. It's very rare that you come across a non-fiction book where you just go, oh, I lost track of time. After a while, your brain goes, oh, it's too intense. And it has to pull out because it just gets too real, dog. That's the difference. But as a result of that, you've actually improved your brain. You haven't just turned it more into mush. I don't like the idea of distractions as you can get. And I think that principle has been instilled as a result of self-help. Self-help will be constantly telling you this. You have to kill the monster while it's little. Face your problems head on. You have to do those things in life. So anyway, I hope that I've answered that question. I don't think I did. Make sure you like the video anyway and give me more questions because as you can see, I'll answer them. I'm very desperate. Bye.